the contours along which horses carried their supporters' hopes for fortune and fame. Immediately to the east, Beihai Road curves in the same way, echoing the track's previous location in the 1850s. Cross Tibet Road near the People's Square metro station and climb the stairs next to the Starbucks into the park. The horses that once raced here have been gone for 75 years, and where grooms and trainers once walked horses to the starting line, parents now push strollers, and couples hold hands, or iPhones. Early in the morning, you may encounter group Tai Chi sessions on the plaza, and in the evening, perhaps dancing grandmas and their line dances. Continue on a little farther and look up. Through breaks in the foliage, you can glimpse a brick clock tower, nearly 300 feet of neoclassicism and Art Deco, that was the emblem of the Shanghai Race Club. It is no small feat that the tower has survived the political upheaval of China's recent past, for when it was completed as part of the race club's new clubhouse in 1934, it symbolized European colonial power in China. The clubhouse was one of the world's largest and finest, an ornate refuge for a ruling class where, every morning, members surrounded by dark wood paneling checked the newspapers for the latest racing odds and news of the world and their city, and where Shanghai held its grandest parties and balls. The grandstands on race days could be filled with 30,000 people of dozens of nationalities. This was the informal, but never casual, center of foreign power in China. Starting in the 1840s, when Shanghai began its rise to become one of the world's great cities, the race club represented the cosmopolitanism and excitement, as well as the racism and oppression, of a unique place. It was the center of a world. This is the story of that world and its last day. On November 12, 1941, 3 crowds gathered in Shanghai, each one in different locations and with very different motivations, represented tremendous change amid the crises engulfing China. The smallest group celebrated the birthday of both an old revolutionary and a new nation at the insistence of Japanese military occupiers and their Chinese collaborators. Another bid farewell to China's wealthiest woman, Liza Hardoon, the half-Chinese, half-French Buddhist widow of a Baghdadi Jewish merchant, whose death symbolized the passing of a generation that had seen Shanghai rise to global prominence. The third and by far largest crowd gathered at the racecourse to renew a semi-annual ritual that had defined Shanghai for decades, Champions Day. The locations of these 3 crowds help illustrate the geography of the city in 1941. Shanghai sits on a bend in the Huangpu River, a minor tributary of the Yangtze, which enters the East China Sea a few miles northeast of the city center. Travelers arriving by ship would steam up the Huangpu and land at the Bund, the row of mainly European-financed office buildings that evoked London or New York more than China. Today, the mandatory view of Shanghai, almost the logo of 21st century China, is the opposite side of the Huangpu, the skyscrapers of the East Bank, Pudong, where dozens of towers, including some of the world's tallest, soar into the air. In 1941, though, little stood there besides warehouses on the waterfront. Behind those, a countryside of rice paddies and small villages extended toward the sea. Everything in 1941, and for most of Shanghai's history until the 1990s, was focused on the Huangpu's West Bank. That's where November 12's 3 crowds were found. Both the Hardoon funeral and the race club were in Shanghai's international settlement, which, together with the adjacent French concession, had functioned virtually, although not technically, as colonies since the 1860s. The settlement, formed by a merger of the American and British concessions, was administered not by foreign governments or governors, but by professionals and merchants, a municipal council elected locally and composed of foreign and, after the 1920s, some Chinese representatives.